Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Pond, and I lead sales and marketing for SDG Corporation, along with our GRC SaaS solution called TruOps. As part of our ongoing GRC complementary education sessions, today we have a very intriguing topic that has been specifically designed to help assist your preparation for 2022 GRC program planning. We very much appreciate your interest in this topic and hope this session and content helps your efforts to really develop a sound and scalable GRC program for your company. Today's session is called GRC in 2022 and beyond, moving from risk resiliency to agility. We'll have two speakers doing this during the session, both speaking about the move to agile GRC. It's our pleasure to now introduce our first speaker. His name is Michael Rasmussen. He's the CEO and founder of GRC 2020, a leading industry analyst and consulting firm. Michael is an internationally recognized analyst, or pundit as we like to say, on topics including governance, IT and enterprise risk management, compliance, and overall GRC. He brings over 20 years of IT security and GRC experience, and he and his team help organizations improve GRC process and choose technologies that are efficient, effective, and agile. Prior to founding GRC 2020 Research, Michael was a vice president and top analyst at Forrester. Our second speaker today will be one of my counterparts here at SDG, Mitali Sharma. Mitali is head of risk, compliance, and information security practices here at SDG. Mitali also has 20 years of IT security experience and compliance expertise in areas such as info security incident management, risk management, security program implementation, and end user training and enablement programs. Mitali's led numerous projects for conducting internal risk assessments and providing strategic consulting to improve measurements and compliance programs, ranging from small SMBs to large corporates around the globe. Following our two speaker sessions today, we will conclude with a Q&A session. Overall, this is structured to be no more than 35 minutes. I would now like to turn over the controls and introduce Michael Rasmussen. Michael?
Well, let's explore GRC 2022 and beyond, moving from risk resiliency to agility. Teddy Roosevelt, the US president from approximately 100 years ago, said risk is like fire. If controlled, it will help you. If uncontrolled, it will rise up and destroy you. Risk is a tool to be used in the organization. And it's something that we can leverage to become more profitable and to navigate the environment, but it also can be something that can destroy the organization. Not just Teddy Roosevelt, let's look at other examples from history, such as John Paul Jones, the famous Revolutionary War naval hero. We all know him for stating, "I have not yet begun to fight." But he also stated, "It is a law of nature, inflexible and inexorable, that those who do not risk do not win." Risk is part of life, risk is part of war, risk is part of business. In order to succeed, you have to take risks, because living in a bubble, you get nowhere. Judge Mervyn Keane, the author of the Keane 1, 2, and now Keane 3 reports on corporate governance in South Africa, said, "Enterprise is the undertaking of risk for reward." Translating from Queen's British Commonwealth English to US English, businesses take risks to make money. Success requires risk taking, but that risk must be managed. Today's organization needs to understand an interconnected, interdependent risk environment in the current year, 2021, but moving into 2022. We need better insight into risks, in the interconnected nature of risk. You look at the pandemic as an example. What starts off with a health and safety risk intersects and has IT security risk issues in the work from home environment. It has fraud risk issues as there's constrained economies and people are concerned about their financial viability and welfare. It has cultural risk as the organization is restructured. It has continuity and resiliency risk in operations. It has a bribery and corruption risk as there's limited government contracts and permits. What starts off with one risk cascades and intersects with a variety of other risks. The physicist Friedrich Capra stated, the more we study the major problems of our time, the more we come to realize that they cannot be understood in isolation. They are systemic problems, which means that they are interconnected and interdependent. We have a business model and we're trying to achieve objectives. Those objectives can be strategic entity level objectives. They can be division objectives, department, process, project, or even asset level objectives like employee information or customer information. And we have objectives on how we use that information, but they also have privacy requirements and things and privacy objectives to that. So we have our business model, we're striving to hit these different levels of objectives, but there's uncertainty in that. And that's risk management. Risk management is uncertainty management. ISO 31000, the international standard on risk management, defines risk as the effect of uncertainty on objectives. And we have to be able to manage that in the organization. But the way a lot of organizations are going about this is backwards. It's what I call the inevitability of failure, relying on a lot of manual processes with documents, spreadsheets, and emails that slow the organization down. There's one organization and I was talking to that was spending 200 employee hours to build a report for the board of directors because they had to go through all these different manual processes and these documents, spreadsheets, and emails, tabulate, aggregate information for the board of directors. 200 hours to build one report, all to find out that 11 months ago, they had a risk issue that started and grew out of control. That's not managing risk. That's reacting to risk. That's not resilient. That's not even, that's not, certainly not agile that we're talking about today, but it's not even resilient. You know, we need better approaches. Manual processes with documents, spreadsheets, and emails don't work. But also a lot of legacy software in this space doesn't work either because it comes as with a huge cost of ownership. And you get stuck on upgrades because of all the customization and things. So we're seeing a focus on agility, new directions in risk and resilience management. The past with either legacy GRC risk software or a lot of manual processes to a future of modern agile software. From a past where there's a lot of responsibilities for risk management to a future where there's greater accountability for risk management. From a past where we're focused on a lot of continuity and then in the last year to resiliency to a future of focusing on agility. And we'll talk more about that and differentiate that in just a few slides here. But today's organization has to be able to see the tree as well as that forest, the individual risk as well as the interconnectedness of risks and the relationship to objectives. Now, when I present this slide in my workshops, I get challenged on this slide. It's happened twice, once in San Francisco, once in London. And they both said the same thing. Two international banks, different individuals said the same thing, that the reality in our environment isn't just the tree and the forest, but it's also the leaves and the branches on the tree. Those details of risks really matter. It's like the butterfly effect in chaos theory, where the flutter of the butterfly's wings make tiny atmospheric changes that can influence the development and path of a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. Those little things matter. And to be agile, we need to be able to see those little things and see these interconnectedness and these relationships so we can properly react in the organization. So 3 strategic trends in GRC in the year 2022 as we advance towards that is agility, resiliency, and integrity. Now, many might think here, well, what's the difference here? Why isn't agility and resiliency some of the same thing? No, they're not. They're subtly different, but they're symbiotic and they relate to each other. I'll get to that in just a couple slides here. But the focus has been on resiliency, moving from business continuity to business and operational resilience. And this is critical to be a resilient organization. Resiliency is that ability to cover from events. And a lot of times business continuity and disaster recovery have been buried in the bowels of the organization. And they're now maturing and becoming a more integrated and part of enterprise and operational risk management. Business resilience includes operational resilience, but business resilience also reflects on the capital and liquidity resilience of the organization, the strategic resilience of the organization, the cultural resilience of the organization, the overall integrity of the organization, and the operational resilience of the organization. Operational resilience is focused on the people, processes, technology, and relationships of the organization in operations. Now, we're moving from this idea of resilience to a focus on agility, business and operational agility. How do we navigate the environment? I'm looking forward to the James Bond movie, and that's out. And so many of you might have already seen this. But that's exciting because James Bond, that super spy, has situational awareness. He knows what's going on around him. He's not just resilient, he's agile because he can navigate the environment and understand the threats and hazards and harms around them and can actually leverage and use them to his advantage. That's agility, understanding the environment. And so in 2022, I see organizations moving from this idea of resilience, which is still important because we need to be able to recover when bad things happen, to be agile, to be able to navigate the environment and prevent bad things from happening and use even risks to our advantage. Like Teddy Roosevelt said, risk is like fire. If controlled, it will help you. If uncontrolled, it will rise up and destroy you. We can be agile with risk and leverage and use it to our advantage. So business agility and risk management is this top-down approach of understanding the objectives and the strategic strategy of the organization and bringing that down into operations. Operational resilience is this bottoms-up approach to be able to look at risk and resilience in the weeds of the organization, and the two need to come together. And here's what I promised you, taking a look at the agile and resilient organization, looking at agility in addition to resiliency. It's a symbiotic relationship, sort of like the yin-yang symbol that's on the slide in front of you. They really rely on each other. Resilience is where we've been focused, is that capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, that toughness, the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, the idea of elasticity. When we have an event, when we fall, when we trip, we get up quickly, and get back in the game. That's resilience. When it comes to an organization, so when we have an outage, or we have some type of disruption or risk event, we recover from it quickly. That's resilience. Now we're seeing organizations start to look towards agility, risk agility. It's that ability to move quickly and easily, to be able to think and understand the environment, that situational awareness to react to the environment, to address the risks and for greater gain in the organization. So we need both resilience and we need agility. And agility is the component where I see organizations maturing to as we move into 2022. But to be agile as well as resilient requires that we have not only left brain thinking on risk, but also creative right brain thinking. Left brain thinking on risk management is that logical and structured thinking about risk management. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle stated, "It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts." This is traditional risk management, building our risk models. And risk models have limitations. There's only so many variables that can go into them and inputs. They don't reflect the complexities of the real world. We can try to make them as accurate as possible, but it's impossible for our risk models to be completely accurate. The real world is too complex. And that left brain logical structured thinking about risk management is still important. We need that. But we also need the right brain, the creative and imaginative thinking about risk management. You can use all the quantitative data you can get, but you still have to distrust it and use your own intelligence and judgment, says Alvin Toffler. And I say you need both, left brain structured risk thinking and right brain creative risk thinking. That right brain looks at the intricacies of risk relationships, like the pandemic. Who in their models really foretold and understood how that pandemic could impact IT security risk, fraud risk, bribery and corruption risk, modern slavery risk, cultural risk issues, and strategic risk issues, and more. It's an interconnected risk environment, and that right brain creative thinking on risk allows us to identify and see these relationships and build better and more accurate left brain models because of that. So to address this, we need this top-down approach to risk agility and resilience management, where we build out that risk management strategy and we understand what our enterprise and operational risk management strategy is, how that filters down into areas of like IT risk strategy. And as part of that strategy, that we have different individuals involved. We have people with that left brain structured thinking about risk, but also people that can think outside the box, that creative risk thinking. And this gets reflected in the risk management processes and analysis and assessments that we do. And in those assessments, you can go through the logical structured approach, but also should go through that, be reviewed by the people that are the right brain thinkers and can think, where's this model weak? What could happen? How can we make this model more accurate? And have that creative right brain risk thinking on that. And this is all supported with the right agile information technology architecture to be able to address this in today's complex, distributed, and dynamic, disrupted, and chaotic business environment. It means that we need technology that can take in a lot of information feeds and understand shifts in industry practices, regulations, the risk environment within geopolitical risks, shifts in technology, as well as shifts in the internal context, and understand, what is acceptable and unacceptable risk and our risk tolerance with a state of controls and requirements, the management of third parties, and so forth, and take in all this information. It means that we need to be able to take in different risk data points, understand, integrate, and map these together, understand these relationships, analyze these relationships, see what can happen and be foretold, and build out action items. If we become agile as well as resilient, and we leverage technology to make us more agile, we should have three broad benefits with many sub-benefits underneath it: efficiency, effectiveness, and agility. When I work on business cases for organizations that want to automate risk management in their organization, I build those business cases around these three angles. How is technology and a shift in our process and strategy going to make us more efficient in risk management? Time saved from manual processes, simplified and streamlined processes, reduction in reporting time, reduced staff to manage risk and resiliency. Then look at the benefits around effectiveness: less things slipping through cracks, a stronger audit trail of everything that happens for a complete defensible system of record, more completeness, thoroughness, more things getting done, the ability to allow for easier risk conversations with executives and risk owners and stakeholders and employees. But the third angle is agility, keeping up with all that change. Regulations are changing, risks are changing, the business itself is changing. To be agile means that we have to keep all this change together and in context. That there's ease of configuration to adapt to a changing risk and business environment. Risk is managed as business processes and roles change and evolve. There's streamlined agility in business change, and we quickly identify needs with new obligations, roles, responsibilities, and tasks. So benefits of 360-degree contextual awareness of risk, agility, and resiliency. We become more aware of our environment. We understand these relationships of risk, because we're thinking left brain and right brain, and bringing that together, that we become more aware of the risks out there and the interconnectedness and how they relate. This allows us to align our risk response and our program so that we're aligned and we can work together with different risk departments to be more responsive to risk issues, to contain them while they're still small risk issues, to be agile in navigating the environment, to use risk to our advantage, to be resilient when we do trip and we have a risk issue, to bounce back, spring back quickly, and do this in a way by leveraging technology that is efficient in our use of human capital and financial capital resources. I appreciate you listening to my presentation. Now we're going to transition to Mitali, who's going to talk to us about the current landscape of GRC, the market trends, as well as the interesting agile GRC maturity model that TruOps has been working on. Welcome, Mitali.
Thanks, Michael, for such an insightful session and for introducing me. Moving on from what Michael said, let's look at the current threat landscape. And with COVID-19 coming in and everybody moving into a remote working environment, the need of the hour now is to have a holistic view of the threat landscape and risks to the organization. No longer are the CXOs or business leaders working in silos. What they need now is an integrated view which can give them a strategic, operational, technology risk landscape. They want to look at those risks from a view where they can get a real-time visibility, which nowadays is more critical to the organization to move beyond operational resiliency and move towards enterprise risk agility. With that, I would move on to the evolving market trends. All of that remote working, organizations now are moving towards adapting solutions which are giving them assurance, which are giving them agility in their risk and compliance frameworks, which are helping them in the identification, quantification, mitigation of cyber threats, which give them a reliable insight into their risks, which can help leverage their AI, ML, different tools that are there in the organization Overall, what they're looking for is a tool which can enable cyber resilience by bringing together that risk situational awareness and intelligence. If we look at this diagram, we would see that the mind of a CISO, what the mind of a CISO looks like, what is his mind map. A CISO right now is occupied with different challenges, whether it is identity and access related challenges, whether it is related to network, whether it is related to applications, cloud, mobility, ensuring that business is working as usual, business continuity without any disruptions. There are risks that need to be managed from a supplier end. There are compliances that need to be managed. There are siloed business units and processes. A CISO is tired of compliance fatigue. There are data challenges. Data has become the new oil. Cloud migration, data, limited view of breaches. All of these have added to the challenges that a CISO has. And what a CISO is looking for, or a CXO of the organization is looking for, is a unified risk insight, which can combine the risks or the threats from external sources, internal sources, contractual risks, and it can provide an intelligent risk orchestration into the enterprise threat landscape. So based on that, what we have designed is an agile GRC maturity model. And over a period of time with various customers, what we have seen is that one or the other places, the customers are lying in one of these circles that you see. Either there are no processes, or there are processes, but the processes are not digitized. The processes are not compliant to a particular standard. They do not have a unified compliance. They do not have a risk visibility. And over a period of time, we help them transition from that phase wherever they are, whether they are at an ad hoc phase, whether they are at a managed phase or a defined phase. We help them become more mature and more optimized by helping them move from a siloed process or a compliance-driven approach to a more risk-driven approach, which has orchestration in it, which provides real-time risk insight, and which provides a risk, which provides decisions which can be risk-based. If we look at the same model from a single pane of glass, we will see that the transition is a journey, like from ad hoc to optimized. It takes time for an organization to move slowly from an ad hoc to an optimized maturity level. And during that course, the organization moves from an area where they do not have any processes, or they have ad hoc processes, they have siloed processes, to processes which are documented, moving on from documented processes which are consistent and compliant to a more mature level state where the processes can be measurable, where you can get risk insights, to processes which are automated, which are based on real-time data analytics, which can help you in balancing between the context and the risk priorities, which can help you make decisions which are risk-based. And in doing so, I think one of the key factors that an organization should think upon is on selecting the right GRC platform. If you are moving towards a journey where you want to move from any of those 5 maturity levels, whether you're at ad hoc level, or you are at a defined level, or you are at a documented level, to move on to the next level, it is very important that during the phase of the journey, you select a tool, you select a platform which is intelligent enough to support you, which is agile enough to support you in making the right decisions and helping you in the implementation. And some of the key elements that you should look at, like some of the ones that I've mentioned on the slide, I'll just pick some of them. Some of the key elements that you should think of could be the cost of ownership, specifically what all modules are there in that particular platform. Is it meeting my current need? How agile it is to move to satisfy my upcoming needs in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years? Do I need to work on the same platform? Will that platform be able to support my dashboards? Will it be able to integrate with the tools? How scalable is the platform? Does it have an interface which is user friendly? Because in cases we have seen that, you go with platforms which are which would have a lot of interfaces, which will have a lot of modules, but then the ease of operation is not there. The harmonization of controls is not there. For example, an organization these days is working with multiple standards. As I mentioned, the real challenge with the CISO is to ensure that you are complying to various standards, whether it is NIST, whether it is HIPAA, whether it is high trust, ISO. So any of those standards you have to comply with. And what you need is a platform which can actually harmonize those controls from various standards, so that once you are complying with one of those controls, you are actually complying to multiple standards. So while selecting any of the GRC platform, you should ensure that some of these, if not all, at least some of these elements are present in that platform, so that it supports and complements your journey rather than making it more complicated and you end up selecting another tool midway of your journey. It is very important that you also choose a platform which can give you continuous controls monitoring, because that is what you would need. You would need a continuous compliance. So you would need a platform which can give you dashboards, which can give you continuous control monitoring, and which can give you the risk insight at a real-time basis. And some of the best practices that we see are like mentioned here, that you first assess the need, you implement the solution, you operationalize it. There is continuous monitoring, there is continuous governance, and there is continuous improvement. That's how the complete cycle of agile GRC journey happens. You start with assessing the business need and finalizing on a particular platform, thinking on this is what is my platform. I told you some of the factors which you can think of. After that, what you need is implementation. And this is more of, before implementation, I would say it is very crucial that you do the planning for that implementation. Because if you want the GRC platform, or you want your journey to be smooth and to be acceptable by all the employees in the organization, you have to make them custodians of information security. You cannot have the organization work in silos, different business units, different function owners work in silos. You have to ensure that all of them are committed to information security the same way as you are. It is not just the role of a CISO or a compliance team to ensure that the things are secure. With remote working, every employee has become a custodian. Every employee has got data. Every employee is responsible for the security of the organization. So it is very crucial that you plan it well. And then once you are implementing, ensure that you are taking the feedback of all the stakeholders, whether it is internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, even your third parties. You should ensure that all of them have a visibility into the platform that you're using and they understand it well. In other words, they should be able to help you in accelerating that journey towards maturity and accelerating your processes, helping you with the continuous monitoring, helping you with the continuous governance. And then obviously, once you are doing the continuous monitoring, there would be some issues that would come up. There would be risks that would come up. You keep on working on them, you keep on improving on it, and that's how the journey continues. I would talk about one of the case studies where we were able to transform an organization in 8 weeks using TruOps platform. And the way, if you look at the slide, you would see that the organization had to comply with various standards, PCI, HIPAA, SOX, ISO, to name a few. And the way we structured it was into 4 pillars. We said governance, risk, compliance, cybersecurity. And we did various integrations. Like if I start about the governance part, we defined processes for them. We helped them consolidate the controls. We helped them consolidate the asset repository. We helped them establish clear ownerships. We helped them in organizing that in a way that it can be measured. We helped them in defining certain policies where we felt there were gaps. From those policies, we extracted controls. We helped them build an information security policy framework. We helped them in defining that risk framework for the organization and the frequency of different activities that had to be performed, whether it is cyber threat assessment, or it is their pen test, or their vendor assessments. We help them establish that frequency. We help them define that process of risk assessment in a more simplified and automated way. We established a risk library for them, which was based on the controls that were applicable to them, the privacy controls, the regulatory controls, the compliance controls to that particular standard. So we were able to do that. And so we spoke about continuous monitoring. You cannot have continuous control monitoring until and unless you have tools plugged in. And these tools for vulnerability management, or you talk about tools which are helping you for HR processes, you need to have the capability to integrate them into your platform. And similarly here also, we were able to integrate Rapid7, Tenable, and not to mention all of that was AD authenticated as single sign-on. So all of those things were done to ensure that the organization becomes cyber resilient. Some of the services, so SDG and TruOps not just helps in becoming a partner, we also become a partner of choice for customers. We try to engage with the customers and help them throughout their journey, whether it is the start of the policies, it is start of the implementation of tools, or it is identity access management, or moving them from becoming cyber secure to cyber resilient through various services, whether it is compliance as a service, identity and access governance, cyber security services, vulnerability management, fraud and risk intelligence. So we help the organizations move towards that journey. And some of the capabilities that we have that have really helped customers, specifically during the last couple of years, since the remote working has increased. The first service, compliance as a service, where we actually become the compliance team or the extended compliance team of the organization. TruOps is having that harmonized controls. We have experts within the organization who help in making those controls harmonized based on the standards that are applicable for an organization. We have become the extended compliance team of customers. We have helped them in establishing the processes. For example, an organization has to be compliant with ISO 27001 or PCI DSS. And what we do is we take up their controls. We try to establish a harmonized list of controls. We help them define policies around it. If we feel there are gaps in policies, we help them close it. We run self-assessments. And as you can see, TruOps, which is the backbone of each and every service, it has various modules which help in that capability, in building that capability, whether it is policy management, whether it is issue and exception module, whether it is risk management, whether it is third-party risk management, continuous monitoring, compliance monitoring, your controls, so all of that, and the vulnerability management. We do all of that leveraging TruOps, and we become that extended team for the customers. So that not just we give them the platform, but we also provide them a service which complements the platform that is there. And in a way, that maturity level is achieved faster based on the need of the organization, the business need of the organization. Similarly, third-party risk assessment helps in, many organizations are working with third parties, and it is essential that the risks to that third party are managed and monitored, and they are tracked in the right way. Because if you do not do that, then the organization is at risk. So we help manage that entire third-party risk management program through TruOps, and we help customers build that platform, build that program for them, which can address the risks, third-party risks. So in a way, what we do is we help them take risk-informed decisions. We help them go to a strategy which is more risk-based, which provides them a holistic view of the risk and the threat landscape of the organization, so that they can become more and more cyber resilient. With that, I end my presentation. And now I would hand it over back to Kyle to summarize today's session.
Thank you very much, Mitali. We would now like to cover some of the questions that have come in during our session. It's unlikely we're going to be able to cover all of these, but we will ensure that we'll respond right back to you directly with a detailed reply. The first question that's come in is, we have some pieces of GRC in place. Where should we begin to get a more agile GRC program running? Michael, what do you think about that question?
Well, the person's correct in that they have pieces in place because everybody's doing GRC today, whether they call it GRC, ERM, IRM, ABC, XYZ. Every organization has some approach to governance, risk, and compliance. The question is, how can it be more efficient, effective, and agile in the organization? How can we improve it? But I don't think you're going to find anybody that's listening to this webcast that says we lack governance, we don't manage risk, we can care less about compliance. There's something happening today, whether it's even reactive, firefighting, broken processes, to a mature integrated process. So to start with is understanding what those pieces are. What is that current state that you're working with? And then once you understand that current state, start to think about what's that future state. I like 2 or 3 year plans. I think a 5-year plan is just ridiculous in this dynamic world of business that we have today. So in 2 or 3 years, what is that ideal state, that future state that we want to start driving towards? And so then contrast our current state to our future state and start building out that roadmap to get us there to be more agile.
Thank you. That was great insight. And I would certainly agree with that as well. Almost all of our clients have pieces in place. They're just trying to put a better end-to-end program in place to give them the capability and insight that they need. The next one that comes in goes right in line with this. How do we go about finding the right solution for our business needs? So this is really vendor oriented. I'll leave it to you, Michael, to give your perspective.
Well, you want to make sure you find the right solution that can deliver on that future state I was just talking about. Where projects fails when they get halfway through it and find out that, hey, it's too much cost of ownership, or it's too complex. It requires too much custom coding and things are breaking on upgrades. You want a solution that is agile, that's highly configurable without, breaking, that can deliver on that future state. I'm working on an RFP in the Middle East right now. This company bought one vendor that it ranks really highly in Gartner and Forrester reports. They bought it 4 years ago. They have 0 users on the platform. They're going back to RFP just because it was too complex. It wasn't agile. I'm talking to 3 large banks that are stuck on one solution because they customize it so much they can't get to the next version of the product. You want to make sure you have technology that is itself agile so you can be agile, that's highly configurable and adaptable to your business requirements without a lot of custom coding and things where things break on upgrades.
Thanks for that, Michael. Another one is, do you see any trends towards a blend of using GRC product with managed service offerings?
Yes, I do. And the key thing is what I was talking about accountability and responsibility. You can outsource tasks like responsibilities. I can give responsibilities to an employee, or I can actually outsource them to a managed service provider to do these tasks and activities. The one thing you cannot outsource, though, is accountability. If there's a risk issue, you own the risk. If there's an event, you own the event. If there's a compliance problem, you own the compliance problem. At the end of the day, you cannot outsource accountability because that has to be with the organization, but you can outsource responsibility. And so I see that in managed services where people are managing processes and tasks, as well as the technology infrastructure to do this in a managed services environment as far as responsibilities around processes.
Great. We have time for one more question too. This one is, what are the most common GRC functionalities that you see deployed by your customers? Michael, I won't give you the vendor answer to that, but what do you see as the most common GRC functionality deployed with companies that you speak with?
Well, first off, definitely risk management. Being able to identify, manage, and assess and treat risks in the environment, whether that's enterprise perspective risks or within specific domains like IT risk management. Risk management is top of the. Next to that, in relationship to it, is control management. To be able to have an enterprise perspective of risk means you have to have an enterprise perspective of controls, and to be able to implement controls to mitigate risks. There's a relationship there. The other thing is compliance assessments, being able to prove compliance to regulatory requirements and to standards. And then the fourth area I'd say is issue management, whether we call it issues, incidents, cases, investigations, but the ability to manage the identification to response of issues and events in the environment as well. So I would say it's those four fundamental foundational areas. There could be many more, but by managing risks, controls, compliance, and the issues and incidents.
Very good. I would certainly agree that we almost all of our clients use those components that align with that. I would certainly agree. Compliance, controls, and assessments and issues are key. With that, we're out of time. And I first would like to finally would like to thank everybody for your investment of time today in our education series. If you'd like a copy of the presentation, our contact information is on this screen. You can contact myself or Matali or Michael, and you'll get a copy of the presentation. And there'll also be a follow-up as well. Again, thanks everybody for your investment of time today, and we hope you have a good day. Thank you.